Welcome back to the Reier on YouTube channel. It is time once again for Second Helping, the show of choice for fans and followers of the number one league in all of collegiate athletics, the Southeastern Conference. I'm Travis Reier, joined by my longtime great friend and longtime college football analyst, Mr. Brent Beaird, most recently with First Coast News. Down in Jacksonville, Florida, Brent, of course, also a voter for the most prestigious individual honor in all of collegiate athletics, the Heisman Trophy. And this could be a Heisman Trophy sort of separating weekend, couldn't it, Brent?
Mhm. Yeah,
Just within the
yeah.
Southeastern Conference, as far as Southeastern Conference candidates go,
Mhm.
between Ty Simpson and John Mateer and some of these guys that we've talked about more and more.
Yeah, and the shame of it is, particularly with Mateer, he probably played travel a week earlier than he should have. He threw way too many picks. I give him a lot of credit for being on the field and certainly giving it a try against Texas. I understand wanting to be able to do that, but and hopefully he didn't set himself back. And I don't think he did. I think there are a lot of people, and I know I'm included in this, that we wait really to until November. And one thing I learned from you early on years ago is you don't win Heisman, Trav, in September and October, do you?
No, you
Um,
don't. You don't win them in September or October, but you can lose them,
yeah,
as we've seen
yeah,
with guys like Cade Klubnik, maybe Garrett Nussmeier.
yeah.
Perhaps he can make a run, a push here.
Hmm.
But you're right. It seems like there's that chance. Johnny Manziel in 2012 is one of the prime examples I
Yeah.
can think of, where a guy just kind of just pushed his way through the second
Hmm.
half of the season and into that spot. But yeah, I'm guessing you've done this for a number of years now, Brent. So you know when to hold them and
Yeah.
when to fold them,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah, and look, it's a you can't get too high or you can't get too low. I mean, it's a season's worth of results is
Hmm.
the thing I think that's important to keep in mind. And I've seen Heisman Trophy people who would, I mean, they would virtually turn their vote in mid-October. I mean, for crying out loud, the Trav, you know, and
Yeah.
I know there's so much stuff that can go on. I mean, person can do whatever he wants to with their Heisman vote, but some of these guys don't really grow up until you get on into the season, and so it's often best to wait and see what happens as it goes along.
Yeah, that must have been a Notre Dame voter that went ahead and cast that
Yeah,
vote
yeah,
in October. That's what that kind of reeks of. You know what else? We got college basketball cranking up too.
that's
Now,
right.
obviously, we're not going to talk much about that tonight, but exhibition games are firing up around the Southeastern Conference. Auburn last night in
Mhm.
Birmingham, Alabama tonight in Birmingham taking
Yeah.
on Florida State. So it's a fun time of year. We're about to get it all sort of coming together where college football and college hoops are concerned, but such a massive weekend, Brent, in the
Oh man.
Southeastern Conference. Just
Yes.
another one of those. And we saw it this week, right? When the
Mhm.
sort of
Mhm.
the TV viewing numbers were announced for the Southeastern Conference,
Yeah.
especially relative to a higher priced Big Ten package
Yes.
and the ratings. Now, look, I'll tell you, I'll be the first to tell you in the South and with the Southeastern Conference, it's a bigger deal than the
Yeah.
National Football League.
No doubt.
Up in the Big Ten, it's still the NFL. I think
Mhm.
that resonates
Mhm.
more so with those folks than even Michigan and Ohio State, Penn State, and those type of programs in that league. But boy, um, if you're ESPN right now, you're liking the value, right? That you're
Yeah.
getting from the
Here
Southeastern
you are.
Conference.
Yeah. Well, and Trav, as far as the numbers are concerned, I mean, to get a like a four, used to be the standard. If you could do that, I mean, that's what you really wanted. Gracious, for now, I mean, you've got a situation where teams are getting sixes
Yeah.
instead of four, and even more than that. And look, when you've got what we've got this week, LSU at Vandy, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Ole Miss at Georgia, which the ratings would be off the chart, Tennessee to Alabama, Missouri at Auburn. So and that's not even the whole league. So TV ratings. Listen, these TV folks in the SEC are licking their chops for the years coming when they re-up one more time.
Yeah, they go back to that well. And, you talked about LSU Vanderbilt at noon Eastern on Saturday, and we're going to get right into that coming up as we preview and review in the Southeastern Conference simultaneously. But to your point, the Big Ten is really loaded up on that noontime kickoff.
Yes.
And it's been a traditional spot for the biggest games in that league. In the
Mm-hmm.
Southeastern Conference now, and in the past, that 11 a.m. Central or 11:30 Central, it never was the biggest game.
No.
It might have been the third or fourth biggest
Mm-hmm.
game in the league on a particular Saturday based on the pecking orders that the networks had.
Yes.
When those packages were spread around. But now, even at noon, we're seeing games like this one, LSU 10th ranked in the country, taking on a top 20 team in Vanderbilt. It speaks to the depth of the league and that ability to dominate engagement from noon to midnight. For 12 solid hours, the SEC right now has the ability to do that. And what about this LSU at Vanderbilt matchup? Vanderbilt actually a 2.5-point favorite over the LSU Tigers. Brent, convince me to feel differently about this game, because as we sit here right now live on a Thursday night, if I were of the wagering kind, it would be very difficult for me not to put the mortgage, the whatever inheritance is left for the kids, the car payments, everything else on LSU. What do folks see in Vanderbilt in this matchup that I'm not seeing?
You and I have seen way too many games like this. I mean, LSU's won 10 straight in the series. Trevor, this is the thing that really, to me, is amazing, is both teams are ranked for the first time since 1947.
That's crazy.
Now that's not 2005. That's 1947. So, but look, I'm with you on this. The games at Vanderbilt, and the question is, look, and I think Vandy is a whole lot more than just a cute story right now. They've got major players there now in the SEC. But Trev, you and I both know, and I know that Vanderbilt, to me, the big thing with this is Vandy changing the mental outlook for this game. We know they can play, but when you get to October, to me, for teams like Vanderbilt, you've got injuries. And do they think they can win when LSU knows they can? So I'm with you that there needs to be a lot that changes in this game to probably change our mind on who we think will win the game.
Yeah, a year ago, 24-17, LSU got the job done in Baton Rouge, and they were very effective against that Vanderbilt offense. Held Diego to under 200 yards passing, did a pretty good job against him in the run game. I think Vandy hit an explosive run like South Carolina did last week.
Yeah.
South Carolina, you look at the rushing stats in that loss to LSU last week, it looks pretty good, but 72 of them, I think, came on one carry. And I understand they all count at the end of the night, but down in and down out, South Carolina wasn't going to make a living, running the football right at this LSU defense. Now, Whit Weeks for LSU, I believe, is questionable for this game. Conversely, what I like for LSU is that Aaron Anderson is probable. So there's a chance you're going to see him get back to making that impact for Nussmeier and that offense in terms of its explosiveness. So I like LSU in the game. I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout, but if you're going to give me LSU in points in this game, that's going to be hard for me to turn away from.
I agree. Garrett Nussmeier, who you mentioned, 4 touchdowns and 4 picks in 3 SEC games. But these are the games that Nussmeier kind of gets things together with. Vandy also needs to demonstrate that it can score against top 5 defenses. And as much as I like Diego, he has had a tendency. We saw it in the Alabama game that we traveled.
Yeah.
Red zone turnovers have bit him. Can he keep from doing that Saturday?
Yeah, he doesn't have to be everything for that
No.
offense. There are pieces around him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about LSU defensively a year ago, they were not great. And they
No.
more than held their own. Did a good job against Vanderbilt a year ago. I know every team every year is different, but to my point, LSU defensively to me is a good bit better than it
Yes.
was a year ago.
Yes.
So I'll take the Tigers on the
Mm-hmm.
road in Nashville early on Saturday, staying in that early window. Brent, the aforementioned Oklahoma Sooners coming off that disappointing defeat at the hands of the Texas Longhorns in Dallas. You talked about it with Mateer and the 3 interceptions, but really all 3 phases, Oklahoma wasn't good enough against
Yeah.
Texas. Gave up
Yeah.
a special teams touchdown for a score. Um, and I'm with you. I think Heisman voters should at least show Mateer some grace
Mm-hmm.
in that he
Mm-hmm.
gave it a go with an injury to his throwing hand that he was coming off of and probably was still dealing with. I would think he's in a better spot
Yeah.
a week later. But Oklahoma hasn't exactly been a point scoring
Mm-mm.
machine, even
Mm-mm.
when he was well. And I think South Carolina at home, you just kind of wonder at this point where they're at.
Yeah.
It's been a
Absolutely.
disappointing start to the season, no doubt about that. Again, offensively, what Lenore Sellers sacked uh, 3, 4, 5 times last
Mm-hmm.
week in Baton
Yeah.
Rouge. Where are they going to get enough offense from against an Oklahoma defense that is still very formidable, and also an Oklahoma team that was embarrassed
Yeah.
by
No
South
doubt.
Carolina
Yeah.
in Norman a year ago?
Oh yeah. Well, the stat line that sticks out for me, South Carolina 107 Trav in scoring offense.
Yeah.
And that, now Mike Shula is their coordinator of Alabama fame. Hasn't quite gone to like Shula certainly would like. And now, listen, I'm not making fun of the situation, but it just kind of amazed me. South Carolina fired their offensive line coach on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you put all this stuff together, Trev, that tells you they're struggling mightily, in some areas.
No doubt. Sean Elliott, a veteran of college football coaching in general, was previously the head coach at Georgia
Yeah,
State, had been
right.
at South Carolina, head coach at Georgia State,
Mhm.
back now in Columbia. It sounds like he's going to take over more of those offensive line
Yeah.
duties. I don't think Oklahoma has to score a ton to win this
Mhm.
game,
Mhm.
but I was a little surprised too. Oklahoma gave it up on the ground a little bit
They
to
did.
Texas last week, and Texas prior to that performance really had struggled to run the football. So I would expect more of a return to what we saw before the Mateer injury.
Mhm.
But again, as a 5.5 point road favorite, I think this could be a field goal game, maybe either way.
Yeah, yeah, and listen, I'm trying not to overreact with what's going on and college football in general, but I've been told this week, could South Carolina make a coaching change? And look, and I'm not saying Beamer's pushed every button correctly. I do think I mean, even one of his detractors would have to say he's raised the I think the talent level and the performance level of their school up to a degree. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying they're ready to go in the playoffs. I think that would be a mistake at this point. But Trav, we're in a different day, are we not? Schools are firing people, and mid to almost early October, when we would never see this happen again. Now I don't want to, be the old man, screaming at the clouds here. But I think sometimes some patience is warranted, and sometimes it's not warranted. But these are two coaches that, if they go on a losing streak, could be in some trouble.
Oh, there's no doubt. They're really Venables more so
Yes.
than even
Oh
Beamer
yeah.
coming into the season. But To me, and I've said this before, the comp for South Carolina football for me is Kentucky football.
Yeah, right.
But South Carolina people don't want to hear that.
No.
Kentucky people are absolutely fine with 6 or 7 wins a year
Yeah.
and going to a lower bowl game. South Carolina people, you win 8 or 9, maybe 10, then you get the expectations that are elevated. We won 9 or 10 last year. We
Yeah.
got Lenora
Yeah.
Sellers coming back. We should win
Really.
11 or 12.
Yeah.
And then when it becomes clear that's not going to happen,
Mhm.
that obviously reverts back to the head coach. I don't know. I wouldn't think Shane Beamer has any interest in following in his father's footsteps
Yeah.
at Virginia Tech. But if you are the connecting of dots
Yes.
sort of kind, I guess you could let yourself sort of your imagination take hold there with the possibilities there in Blacksburg. Let's talk about 3:30 Eastern on Saturday. Texas A&M, the nation's 4th-ranked team, a 7.5-point road favorite at Arkansas. The Razorbacks coming off a entertaining loss, at least
Yes.
34-31 at the hands of the Tennessee Vols. A&M, man, this third down defense that you've been telling us about for a few weeks now, they did a number on the Gators last Saturday night in College Station too. Got off to a little bit of a sluggish
Mhm.
start,
Mhm.
but third down, man, the Texas A&M defense. I'll go on the record though. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Bobby Petrino's Arkansas offense will convert at least 3 third downs. How about
Yeah.
that, Brent? At
Yeah.
least 3 third downs, which would maybe double,
Mhm.
just about double what we've seen SEC opponents put together against Mike Elko's group to this point.
Well, the thing that we've seen here is with Petrino, and we touched on this the other day, is Petrino as an interim making making a lot of changes to that defense, which tells us that he will certainly get a real long look at taking over the head job on a permanent basis. Now you got to win a few games, and you can end up doing what they did in the last game and finishing with 0 sacks for the day. That certainly didn't hurt. But I will say this: I mean, Arkansas on the offensive side of the ball is frankly a lot of fun to watch. Now, I tell you, Trav, can you be undefeated as A&M is and no one pay attention to what you're doing?
I've said it
Um,
before. Their biggest fault among sort of the casual viewers, especially, is that they don't really have a Manziel. They
yeah,
don't have a
yeah,
guy. They don't have a star.
right.
Their 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 strength is in their numbers
Yes.
and how they perform as a team. And I'm sure that's absolutely fine by Mike Elko.
I bet it is too. Oh, yeah. Now, there is cause of concern. I know you saw this. Levon Moss,
Yeah.
who frankly is one of the best running backs in the league, and probably another one that people don't know about, is going to miss a significant period of time. I mean, he has had that happen before, and that is unfortunate. But Trav, he is a man when he is healthy, and he is running the ball. Now, look, I think A&M has a team this year on both sides of the ball. They can probably overcome that, but I don't have any doubt that that is something that Elko did not want to see.
Yeah, I think last year was Reuben Owens, right? In
Yeah,
that backfield. They've had some injuries the last couple of years, but they've also had pretty impressive depth to help them overcome it. Marcel Reed is quietly played at a good enough
yes,
level, if not
yeah,
beyond. KC Concepcion has been absolutely what they needed from the transfer portal coming in at the
hmm
wide receiver position
hmm
from NC State. So, this is another road dog, road favorite. And you know
yeah,
what they say about those home dogs, Brent?
that's
They
right.
have, sometimes they have some teeth on them, those home
Yes,
dogs. Another game where I think that Petrino and that offense keeps it entertaining. I mean, you're going to be fascinated to see what this defense for A&M can do with Talon
yeah,
Green.
yes,
Arkansas ran the football really well
yeah,
against Tennessee last week.
hmm
But it's those sort of catastrophic moments that we talked about in the past that make you hesitant. The last physical type of football team that went into Fayetteville got Sam Pittman fired, basically,
Oh yeah.
and that was Notre
Yeah.
Dame.
And,
And
yes.
there's some connections there. Notre Dame, Texas A&M was a heck of a
Mhm.
game. It was a close game in South Bend about a month ago or so. So it's hard for me to go against this A&M team because the things that travel well, man, are
Yeah.
defense and a run game, and
And
they're physical.
Trav, I'm laughing at this because how often do you see this? A&M's 3 SEC opponents have gone 2 for 33 on third
Yeah,
downs.
that's what I'm saying.
2 for 33.
Yeah, I think Florida was 1 for 10 last
They
week, and
were. They were.
I think Bobby Petrino will double that.
I think he will. Yes.
It'll at least be 4 or
Yeah,
5
that's true.
uh, after this week, because Bobby knows that
Oh,
stat,
you better believe.
and
Hey,
Bobby thinks highly of himself,
he does.
and they're not
Yes.
gonna hold us to 1 for 10. I can
Yeah.
promise you that.
Yeah.
So may take a double reverse pass or 2 or something to keep it from happening. Let's stay there in that 3:30 window. Major implications. Here's how crazy the SEC is this year too. You know what we never talk about on this show, Brent? We never talk about the league standings. It's
Yeah.
almost like,
Yeah.
let's
It's
get to
true.
the end. Let's just get
Yeah.
to the end and see who's still left standing.
Right.
But
Right.
this is one of those games when you just talk about league standings. Now, part of that too is that's where we've lost something because of the
Yeah.
expanded playoff. We talk
Sure.
more about the 12 spots than we talk about the
Mhm.
2 for the conference championship, but this is obviously a big one. Ole Miss struggling past
Yeah.
Washington State
Yeah.
last week. It was not a happy Lane Kiffin post game,
Oh,
either
man.
with the student section or with his team in the locker room post game. He was talking standard. And this program has reached a point
Yeah.
where there are standards for Ole Miss football, and they did not. They got by last week, and we talked about it. That was a Washington State team that had
It
given up
was.
59 on a
Mhm.
couple of different occasions. So he wasn't happy after
No.
eking out 24 against the Cougars.
No, and look, when you're 24-21, what that means is now I don't think the Ole Miss defense would have allowed it, but that means, I mean, Trav, you're busted coverage from losing the game,
Yep.
right?
And it's the
Man.
kind of game we've seen Ole Miss lose in the past.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
Kentucky last year, and I think Lane
Mhm.
realizes that. And it still resonates with him that they essentially missed out on the college football playoff a year ago because they couldn't beat Kentucky at home.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that could have been all over again with Washington State, but they got the job done. Now they take it on the road. Georgia has been, in my opinion, just out culturing some of these
Yes.
teams. They did it to
Yep.
Tennessee.
Yep.
They did it to Auburn. Those are the kind of wins that you continue to amass when you've been as good for as long as Georgia has
Mhm.
been.
Mhm.
And Georgia has a little something to
Yeah.
regain because it was Ole Miss that pretty much controlled that game in
Sure
Oxford
did.
last year, especially after Austin Simmons
Mhm.
went in there and took that Ole Miss offense down the field. Interestingly enough, now it's not Jackson Dart that Austin Simmons is backing up, but it is Trinidad Chambliss, who has some storylines to sort of speak to in his own right because we really haven't seen him, I guess, in this spot,
No.
going on the road at this level.
Yeah, and this is his first real road test to see how he's going to do. I mean, he's excelled, frankly, and basically what they've done. But Trev, is this a game Kirby circled? Frankly, he knows they were embarrassed last year,
Mm-hmm.
and look, and they've proven that, and they certainly proven this against Tennessee. I think you're going to have a steady diet of them running the ball and controlling the clock behind that offensive line. And listen, they can't do what they did last year, Trav, is let Ole Miss get 10 to 14 points ahead and then trying to battle back. I think you'll see different strategy this time for Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia's been a slow starting
It
team in
really has.
general and against legitimate SEC competition,
Mhm.
whether you're talking about Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn last week, their defense has gotten blitzkrieged a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah,
And, you don't need that to happen against this Ole Miss team, even playing at home. And you know that, Lane and Charlie Weiss Jr. can have that offense ready to go in a way in which you can be down 10, 14 points. I think for Georgia, uh, dealing with Chambliss, you got to take something away from him. And Kewan Lacey. That's another guy who had a big game. When you look at the numbers for Ole Miss last week against Washington State, you can't believe it was a 3-point game, really. But it was. And so I think there's good news for Georgia on that offensive line that has continued to be pretty average at best into this season from a year ago. I see where Ernest Green III, one of the starting offensive tackles, is listed as probable for this week. Same with Juan Gaston, an outstanding young offensive tackle. That would be helpful. I think that for Georgia, again, you can't continue to wait until middle of the second quarter or beyond to start playing in these kind of games, because Ole Miss is more than capable of putting you in the kind of hole that makes you predictable offensively. Georgia really has to maintain balance, because Gunnar Stockton is not a bring you back from 21 down. He might be able to bring you back from 10 down. Because the rest of the football team is capable of doing that too. But he's not we'll get down 21 and we're going to come all the way back, I don't think. And you gotta be willing to utilize him in the run game too, to go along with Chauncey Bowens and Nate Frazier and the rest of those backs.
I'll say this very quickly, Trav. If that goal line stand had gone the other way, and Auburn's up 17-0.
Yeah, that game's over.
Listen, Trav, and they were on Georgia at that point. Had done nothing. Was basically on fumes.
Yeah.
Is there any way they'd have come back from that?
I don't think so. I don't think they come back because, look, it's still on Auburn. And that whole scenario could have gone a couple of different ways.
It really could have.
Not just that way. It could have been 10-7 based on the return. Since they ruled it a fumble on the field, the clear recovery was actually returned for a touchdown. That was negated by the whistles, I guess. But it was a tough play. It was on the replay. At first, we talked about it earlier in the week. I thought the first punch was it ended up really being the second one. So the first punch to the ball I didn't see until a couple more replays. That at least brought it into question. And once it is brought into question, even whatever it is on the field, good luck getting it overturned. And so bad break for Auburn in some ways, yes. Bad break for Georgia, yes, based on how it was officiated. But yeah, I just, Georgia's just seems to be playing with a little bit of fire.
Yes.
Week in and week out. And I understand, like I said, the culture can take you a lot of places in a long way. But there's a limit to it too.
No doubt.
Let's talk about Mississippi State at Florida. Boy, the rumblings of the last 24 hours or so. Now, look, I'm not going to tell you it's been Pete Thamel reporting it. I'm not going to tell you it's been, the national guys like that. But there have been rumblings, at least rumors, I guess you could say, conjecture, you could say. I don't think it would surprise anyone that perhaps there are conversations that have been ongoing about the immediate future for Billy Napier, especially after that performance in College Station last Saturday night on the heels of what some thought might be a season-turning win over Texas. That was not the case. So the Gators now get Mississippi State in Gainesville. I wouldn't be surprised, again, if they lose this game at home, that we don't see Billy Napier in Jacksonville a couple of weeks later.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Or, Travis, would they? And look, they don't. My question is, what would they do to replace him, even for the rest of the year? With
They got Spurrier down in the basement. Go down to the cellar. They're kind of in the cellar. Just go down the hall.
Get
the head ball coach back out. Dust off that visor. Hey, There's a lot of Gator fans. I'm joking, of course, but
Yes.
there are a lot of Gator fans that would absolutely love that.
Oh,
If we're gonna
oh,
lose,
listen.
let's put the man back out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing that really is concerning for Florida right now, they're 11 for 53 on third downs in the combination of their 4 losses.
Yeah,
Man, that is rough. And again, for them, the unusual thing here is again the scenario. What's going to happen with the coaching staff is overplaying the game, and frankly, Trav, you and I are seeing something that I hope our audience can appreciate. And it's troublesome, but it's just the reality of it. I mean, for the first time, we may see changes at both Florida and Florida State in the same year.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It could
but,
happen.
but um, Florida State's buyout is much heavier,
And
obviously.
the resources at Florida State are much
Yes,
lighter,
yes, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
would say,
yeah.
as compared to Florida.
But my question to you is, and I understand them doing it with the off week coming next week, but Trav, do they tell Napier like they told Ron Zook, okay, we're making a change in the year, but we need you to coach the team the rest of the season. Would they do that with Napier? I wonder.
Napier's the kind of guy that I would think um, might be open to that.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's the look too. If you're going to get somebody out these days, you get them out.
yeah,
Zook was
yeah.
what 20 years ago or so.
Sure.
So typically in this era of college football, when there are changes made, they are made, and guys are cut their checks, or at least
Mhm.
started to be cut their checks, and we'll see. For Mississippi State, it's an opportunity again to get
There
a
it is.
first SEC win under
Yep.
Jeff Lebby. Not going to have Fluff Bothwell though at the running back position. Booth's been a solid back. Um, Mississippi State's a 9.5 point underdog on the road. What do you think, Brent? Do the Bulldogs finally get it done, or does Florida muster enough? Do they rally one more time around Billy Napier?
I still think their defense is enough. That now their defense struggled against A&M, and we saw some cracks in the defense from one of the first few times this year. I mean, the game sold out. They certainly are. Will have the support, but I think they're still good enough to where they could win. I mean, Trav, this thing may be what 17-14.
Could
Something
be, could be Charlie Pell versus Emory Ballard,
they could. Yeah,
Florida,
yeah.
Mississippi State, for the old heads.
Oh
The
yes.
old heads know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. I think so. And I kind of go back to, if Florida just a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
good enough to beat Texas
Yes.
in Gainesville, then personnel wise, they should be able to beat Mississippi State. But again, the psyche of this team, where they're at mentally, is going to, I think,
Yes.
going to determine a lot of
Mhm.
what we see in this one. I'd go Florida, but I won't be surprised if it's a
Oh
field
no,
goal type game here
not
too.
at all.
Let's talk number 21, Texas. 12.5 point, another one of those road favorites.
Hmm.
12.5 points, the Texas Longhorns riding the high of that Red River win over the Oklahoma Sooners. Going to head up to the Commonwealth. Night kickoffs in October can be a little bit tricky, history tells us, but the Wildcats looking to get right against the Texas Longhorns at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Now, can Texas build on that performance from last
Yeah.
week?
Yeah.
Specifically, Arch Manning, Trey Wisner, I thought was huge. The running back, finally getting some legitimate production out of him or one of those backs, was very important for Texas in that win over Oklahoma. Um, what are you thinking for Kentucky? Are we talking about beleaguered head coaches and a
Yeah.
lot of noise around a head coach here in the last couple of weeks? That's certainly been Mark Stoops.
Yeah. Yeah. And Stoops has done a pretty good job in keeping himself focused and motivated. But I mean, I still think if anybody can, they could do a amicable parting at the end of the season. I mean, Cutter Boley is probably going to be the quarterback. We'll see if that continues. Zach Calzada is still maybe a possibility, but I mean, Calzada and Boley, 4 touchdowns and 4 picks this season. I mean, the Longhorn defense has played well enough. I mean, they had 5 sacks and 3 picks against Oklahoma. So, I mean, Texas is still, 4-2, 1-1. I mean, they still could do something as the season goes along. So, but this is sad to say, but Kentucky fans just hope not to get blown out at this point.
Yeah, I like Texas on the road. Not that I trust them entirely, but I think even towards the end of the Florida game on the road a couple weeks ago, you started to see some things that were translatable to Oklahoma. And what you hope as a Texas fan right now out there, you're hoping that it translates to your next road trip. And
Yeah,
it's another
right.
game away from Austin.
Sure.
Handled Dallas pretty well last week. No reason to think that won't be the case. It looks like CJ Baxter for Texas, doubtful, the running back. So Trey Wisner, once again, is going to be asked to carry a lot of the load. And you talked about the quarterback situation for Kentucky at this point. I'm not sure it really matters all that much.
Yeah, right.
But it just feels like Kentucky needs this game to be more in the teens to
They do. Yes.
maybe 20. But I'll say this, Kentucky has run the ball pretty well at
They
times
have.
this season, and that was a big surprise from a couple weeks ago with Texas. Not that it maybe should have been, because we went into the season thinking Florida's run game
Yeah.
would be a real strength,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't really compete all that well with that Florida run game. That's what I think it's going to take though for Kentucky. They're going to have to kind of be what Texas was against Oklahoma last week, and that
Yes.
could mean non-offensive touchdown, special teams, clean in the turnover margin or plus a couple in the turnover margin to get the job done at home against the Longhorns. Hey, let's stay in prime time, because another one of those huge matchups on Saturday, the Alabama Crimson Tide hosting the Tennessee Vols, a top 15 matchup. This is nothing new for the Alabama Crimson Tide,
No.
looking
No.
once again to get a win. I think, what, a 4th straight week it would be
Yeah.
over a top
Yeah.
15 team if Alabama is able to pull this off Saturday night in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, and they have look. They hadn't been perfect, but they had a big win at Missouri, a big win at Georgia. I mean that's impressive. 3 straight wins over ranked teams. But look, I mean, folks need to get used to this. And not just with Alabama, but because we're going to 9 SEC games next year. I mean, Trav, it's just unbelievable. There are just no breaks, is it? I mean, you go from week to week in this situation too. Now, Jermon McCoy, the cornerback, is out against Alabama. Tennessee's the last in the SEC in passing yards allowed with 257. Now, Tennessee is as good as anybody is on the offensive side of the ball. They've in their last game, rushing 264 yards a game. So, and they need Ricky Gibson and Jermon McCoy back on defense. Could this be at least a medium to wow shootout at some point? I think so. It's really going to be fascinating. But Trav, again, very. I mean, it's hard to be as good as he is and still be as calm and as modest about it. But I give Ty Simpson credit for, at this point, being as good of an Alabama quarterback as we've seen in quite a while when he steps on the field.
Been very good, no doubt about it. And I think, to your point, being down a couple of defensive backs like Tennessee's going to be in this game, and that's already an area where you have big concerns. That's obviously not optimal for the Volunteers. Also going to be without for the first half anyway. One of their top reserve
Yeah.
linebackers, and Edward Spillman, who was flagged for targeting in the second half against Arkansas last week, got a shot in on Talon Green, who was sliding at the end of a play. So still going to be okay with their starters, but Spillman's a guy who's played a pretty good bit of football, a young emerging linebacker, it seems like, for the Vols. And then, for Alabama, pretty good news, it seems like, here on even Thursday is Jam Miller,
Yeah.
the starting running back coming out of concussion protocol, has now been upgraded to probable for Saturday. So that means he must be in really good position, not to just move through the protocol, but also get some legitimate practice work in. So it sounds like we're going to see Jam Miller, which is important because Tennessee will get aggressive with those linebackers, not afraid to bring them, not afraid to bring pressure. Feels like Tennessee's probably played more zone this year because of the issues they've had in the secondary. That hasn't always worked against Alabama.
Yeah.
A little different approach to zone by Missouri last week did create some issues. But I think Tennessee's going to still try to get after Ty Simpson with the pass rush. I think to kind of counter that, I'm expecting Ryan Grubb, maybe by design, to move Ty Simpson more.
Yeah.
Not sit him in the pocket as much as maybe they did. I think screens will be a part of it. Although if you're getting a lot of zone, those aren't always easy to make work. They're easier to make work against man-to-man and, those type of things. So an interesting chess match coming up between the offensive brain trust for Alabama and the defensive side for Tennessee. And Joey Aguilar, and this Tennessee team really in general, going back on the road, the first time we really saw them in a true road environment was Starkville a few weeks ago, and very fortunate to get out of there with a win.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No question about that. And by the way, Ty Simpson, 16 touchdown passes, 1 touchdown pass away from matching what Bama did all of last year.
Yeah.
Which frankly is amazing in a lot of ways. The weather should be good at Bryant Denny, from what we've seen. So, but I agree with you. I mean, but if Bama is able to win this game, they would make quite a statement, and we certainly would have to be careful next week going to South Carolina. But and also careful with Jam Miller. But this certainly one of the headline games coming up this weekend.
I would think this is a chip on their shoulder game for Tennessee's receivers too, because going in, it's all about Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard and Isaiah Horton and Lottie Brooks. But boy, Brazil and Staley, Matthews, Kitzelman at tight end. Tennessee has some legitimate dudes around the quarterback position. And also we talk about good news for Alabama from the running back perspective. Deshaun Bishop, the Tennessee running back who's been very productive this season, former walk-on. The injury at the time against Arkansas last week did not look good.
No, it didn't.
And so for him to come through that and be probable on Thursday for Alabama, I think is serious good news for the Vols. And that's really, I think, where this game will be sort of determined in a way, because I think it goes back to Alabama's defensive line against Alabama's front seven against Tennessee's run game.
Yeah.
If they can come out and establish themselves as formidable against the run and put more of this on Aguilar, and also on the back end force him to at least hold the football a little bit, I think they've got a chance to get this done. I think this could be a wild start to this game, Brent.
Yeah.
It could be a wild start, and then whichever team settles in first ends up winning. I like Alabama to win the game, but kind of how it plays out exactly is where I'm not exactly sure.
And Trav, a quick question: will Ryan Williams? How much will he play, and how hurt is he? Or there are some other issues involved with this? That would be fascinating to see.
Yeah, that's been a sort of intriguing situation since the start of the season. He's not on the availability report, and it's Thursday. So, from a health perspective, I think he's totally fine. I think what you're seeing emerge more and more with Alabama, with guys like Brooks stepping
Yeah,
forward and
sure.
Horton continuing to show up nicely, like he did on the touchdown catch against Missouri. Jeremy Bernard has been outstanding. He didn't have a productive week at Missouri last week. That would probably worry me if I'm Tennessee, because I'm probably not going to get 2 straight weeks where I get Jeremy Bernard catching three
Yeah,
balls for 20
really.
yards.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I'm also not in this whole, well, Alabama's better off without Ryan Williams. I mean, come on.
yeah, really.
We heard
Yeah,
that, and then he lit up Vanderbilt. Yeah, he's
yeah.
had some drops. He has, but
Mhm.
I think you definitely want to get this guy involved as much as you can. I don't think, though, they feel like he has to be at the top of the script, get him a touch to start every game. I think they look at maybe even more Jeremy Bernard in that light than they do Ryan Williams.
And Trev, I'm going to ask, and you're one of the best people I could ask this. The the pass that Ty threw on fourth down
Yeah.
to Latier Brooks. I don't, I mean, was he 3 steps or 2 steps from being out of bounds? I mean, that was, look, I don't want to go overboard with this, but that was a really incredible throw. And then he throws a touchdown on fourth down. So I know he struggled somewhat, had 4 sacks, but man alive, those 2 throws in that drive, Trav, there aren't a lot of not a quarterbacks in the country who make those 2 throws.
No, and it goes back to players instead of plays. And Ryan Grubb, we've given him his flowers extensively
Yeah,
here on the show throughout the season, and he continues to dial it up magnificently. The final touchdown to Daniel Hill, that was
yeah,
very well conceived,
yes,
and a lot of credit to Ryan Grubb for that. But the fourth down to Lottie Brooks, I mean, Missouri had that covered,
they did.
and good
Yeah.
coverage, but a better throw and a really good finish to the play by
Mm-hmm.
Brooks. And, that's just an example of players making plays in big moments. And that's what they're going to need to continue to do against Tennessee this week. Also in prime time, Missouri traveling to Auburn after that aforementioned loss to the Alabama Crimson Tide in Como last Saturday. One of those gut check type of games for Missouri, because everything had been just fine. It was a very comfortable Missouri team playing
Mm-hmm. Yes.
5 straight, right? Or 5 or 6 straight in Como. This is the first road game
Mm-hmm.
for Missouri
Yeah.
all season, and
Yeah.
it's going to be October the 18th, Brent.
It's amazing. It really is. Oh yeah. I mean that's almost like, like Miami stepping out of the state of Florida,
Yeah.
not until November. uh, which is amazing. But look, I mean, Trev, I mean, you've got your back up against the wall. If you're Auburn, your coach is under fire. They're 5-12 at home since 2021. They've now lost 9 straight, 18-21 to their second biggest rival. Damari Austin is no longer with the team. He's off. Look, I mean, Auburn can win the game, but man, their back is against the wall right now, is it not?
Oh, it's kind of into the wall.
Yeah.
It's through the wall almost in terms of what that team wanted to accomplish in this season. But Rick Morrison chiming in here in the show chat, and we appreciate you,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
everyone who has chimed in. We're gonna try to acknowledge you as best we can. We absolutely appreciate you jumping
Mm-hmm.
on with us live on a Thursday night. Rick says, how much has that Auburn Missouri line moved since it opened? I think it's moved. I think
Yeah.
Auburn opened a 1.5 point
Right.
favorite.
Right.
And now
Correct.
I think it is Missouri
Yes.
a 1.5. So
Mhm.
my public school upbringing, my public school math, Rick, tells me that is a 3
Yeah.
point move. That's not insignificant, as we
Yeah.
know. That's
Absolutely.
especially for a road team
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
sort of move that way. So something to keep an eye on. My concern for Missouri is the old adage about Alabama beating teams
Yeah,
twice that we used to
right.
hear about under
Yes.
Nick Saban.
Hmm.
Will that be applicable after last Saturday and the disappointment of, dropping that game to UA? And I also worry about Bo Prabula on the road.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Hmm.
what do we really know about Bo Prabula in this type of setup? Um, he was a backup quarterback at Penn State,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
now you're going to roll him out there. Now, look, we can ask the same questions about Auburn after the way things unfolded at Jordan Hare last Saturday night. Uh, Missouri needs to kind of take command of this thing as early as they possibly can, because I think it could be a little bit of a subdued Auburn crowd
Could
relative
be.
to Auburn
Hmm.
standards anyway,
Hmm.
early on Saturday night. And the longer that they get belief injected into their veins, the tougher that thing's going to become. And then if you get into a situation where you're maybe playing from behind and you're asking Bo Prabula to win it for you with his arm instead of
Hmm.
maybe
Yeah.
using his legs like you were able to do against Alabama last week, that's where it could be problematic. Not that Jackson Arnold is you're going to throw it around in a way that could put you down 21-0.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen, but the longer it takes for you as a visiting team on the road in the SEC in general, and especially at a place like Jordan Hare, the harder it becomes.
Well, my question to you is, and again, we're seeing Hugh Freeze's offense averaging 331 yards and
Yeah.
only 24 points a game. I mean, Trav, I mean, let's be realistic here. What do these Auburn receivers thought to be the strength of their defense? If this thing continues, do these guys check out mentally at some point and try not to get hurt? I mean, I'm not saying they're not going to play hard, etc. But there are a lot of people didn't think this would be going on at Auburn right now.
Yeah, and I mean, with the Austin situation, you got current players, former players chiming in on social
Yeah,
media,
yeah, absolutely.
expressing their displeasure about the
Mhm.
situation. So, again, that's the great unknown. There's both these teams. I think it's the same sort of storyline, just for
Yeah,
different
it is.
reasons in terms of who's going to really show up or what team are we going to get from these two. So, you know, I think about the Auburn offense, and I'm not surprised. I mean, Jackson Arnold last year kind of showed you what he was
He did.
throwing the
He sure
football.
did.
Now, if you're Auburn and you thought, yeah, but that offensive line was bad, his receivers were all hurt.
Mhm,
Those are true
mhm.
statements about
Yeah,
last year. But at the same time, even when he had guys open and he had time, he hasn't shown you to be that kind of guy.
yeah, yeah,
And it's probably the difference of when you work the transfer portal, you either hit on it like Oklahoma did with John Mateer, who I also don't think is John Elway,
yeah, yeah,
the part two, throwing the football. I don't think John Mateer's that guy either. But this is kind of what you're going to get with Jackson Arnold. And,
mhm.
when you play defense like Auburn can and does for extended stretches, you think that's probably going to be good enough to at least win a conference game by
Sure.
now.
Mhm,
But it just,
mhm.
this league, man, it doesn't get any easier.
It
I,
doesn't.
I think for Auburn, if they're able to have success against Ahmad Hardy to the extent that
Yes.
Alabama did
Yeah,
last week,
right.
they have a really good chance to win this game.
Yeah, they do.
Because again, I think Prabula is kind of the transfer portal equivalent of Jackson Arnold.
Yeah.
They're not. He's going to throw it to you a couple of times. The worst thing you
Mhm.
can do to Bo Prabula, though, is what Alabama tried to do a couple of times last week and bring pressure and play man coverage behind it. They paid for it. Um, but it'll be interesting to see how DJ Durkin kind of goes about that for the Auburn defense.
My concern for Auburn too is Auburn had 11 penalties for 90 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That is the first SEC team to have 10+ penalties in 3 consecutive games, Travis, in 7 years.
You know who had just one penalty, I think it was last week? SEC team? Arkansas.
That's incredible.
One penalty against
Wow.
Tennessee. And they went the entire first half without a penalty.
Mhm.
I
Wow.
think they got penalized in the third quarter, maybe. I
Mhm.
think it was just one
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Arkansas. You don't see as
Wow.
much of that. Another team that's cleaned it up is Alabama.
Yeah.
They've
It's
helped
true.
themselves, and as you talked about earlier, with their start, especially winning a couple of tough road games, and also with as many offensive linemen as they rotate in.
Yeah.
You know,
Really.
you would think pre-snap, things like that would be a little more problematic with the
Mhm.
number
Mhm.
of guys they run in there up front, but kudos to that offensive staff, especially because it hasn't been much of a concern. So Missouri at Auburn. Man, my gut's telling me Auburn in this one, Brent. But um, I'm going to go Auburn at
Mm.
home. I'm going to go Auburn over Missouri. What do you
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say the same thing. If I, Trav, if I can envision the that Missouri could run the ball, and again, we got to consider who Missouri played
Right?
at the beginning of the season too, and I'm sure they had a lot to do with it. If they had or get 120 yards rushing,
Yeah.
I could see them being able to control the ball enough to win the game. But with that Auburn defense, Trav, and look, good and well that they know they've got to
Mhm.
play and really play well over this next month if they're going to do anything. I don't think Missouri can run the ball that well again.
I think Auburn. My point, really is Auburn's going to get somebody
Yeah,
at
sure.
some point, and they still got Alabama at home
Hmm.
down the road, as we know, and it's most likely, I think, to happen at Jordan Hare. This game's in Como. I would not be picking Auburn.
Yeah, no, no, I
Um,
agree.
I think it's as simple as that, and the line's sort of reflective of that. And so, if Auburn wins, that means John Cohen won't be out on the field berating officials.
Yeah, no,
In all likelihood,
no.
the Auburn athletic director. Boy, did that reek of
Oh my.
I've got to get out here and sort of highlight the consternation with the
Yeah,
officiating because I hired this guy now.
right, right. Oh
And
yeah.
so what I'm also
Yeah,
basically telling the fan base is he's getting another year. That's what I took from it was that
yeah,
Cohen's
right.
basically letting people know, well, no matter what, Freeze is getting another year.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and it's gonna be kind of sold as, well, man, 2 or 3 of these games, the officiating just took it from
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
And then it'll be on to the Auburn fan base to whether or not they actually
Yes,
buy it. So, but people buy a lot of stuff these days. So
they do.
who am
Yes, they do.
who am I to expect more?
Mm.
Um, Brent, what else you got for us before we get out of
Well,
here on Thursday
I,
night?
I know this is not non-SEC, but it deserves to be brought up a little bit. Just as a mention, man, beyond the SEC, there's some tremendous games. Utah and BYU,
Yep.
USC and Notre Dame is a possibility. Man, Texas Tech is playing well, to say the least. I thought it was significant that Kirk Signetti gets a unbelievable deal.
Kurt got paid.
He
Yeah.
did, didn't he?
Yeah.
In Penn State, and he,
Thanks, Penn State.
yeah, 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 and Trav, how quiet has Ohio State been? Not just kind of winning. I'm not saying they're bored or anything like that, but that they're doing what they need to be doing. And I
Mhm.
tell you, other teams we need to be watching. Uh, uh, Clemson and SMU, Duke, and playing an undefeated Georgia Tech, Florida State at Stanford in a big game for Florida State, and Friday night You've got Miami and Louisville, and this Miami team, I'm not going to say quietly, it snuck up on people, but outside the footprint of the SEC, there's some good games.
Yeah, Washington State didn't make the Big Ten cut, with the expansion a couple of years
Yeah.
ago. But I saw where after going to Ole Miss last week, they're going to Virginia this week.
Oh man.
How about that for back-to-back roadies
Woo, good,
for the
nice.
Cougars? Yeah, they were like, well, if we're not in the Big Ten, we can at least travel like we are.
Yeah, yeah, really. Oh
Yeah,
man.
or the ACC.
Yeah, well,
Crazy,
at least
crazy.
at least the players are getting a little money, right, for the
Yeah,
traveling.
I hope so. I hope
Good
so.
Lord.
They're getting frequent flyer
Yeah, they
miles.
sure are.
They do get to
Absolutely.
keep those. They do get to keep those. So that might be about it for the Cougs.
Yeah,
Brent, as always, a lot of fun, my friend. Look forward to a
absolutely.
huge weekend of college
Oh
football,
man.
SEC football, and look forward to talking to you about it all next week right here on Second Helping. For Brent Beaird, Travis Reier, thanking you once again. If you haven't subscribed to Reier on YouTube, take the time, please, to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit us with a thumbs up. That would help us out tremendously as well. For Brent, I'm Trav. Have a great weekend. Talk to you again real soon right here on Reier on YouTube.